a Playlyst original.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast,
where we review the pilot episodes of TV shows to answer your question, should I watch this?
My name is BJ.
And my name is Mitu.
And this week, we're watching Grosse Pointe Garden Society on NBC, Running Point on Netflix, Black Ops on Hulu, and Beyond the Gates on CBS.
So stay tuned to the end to find out BJ's favorite flowers.
Ooh, okay, I'll think about that. In the meantime, how about you tell us about a gardening club?
You're talking about Grosse Pointe Garden Society on NBC. In a wealthy suburb where everything appears to be perfect on the surface, 4 members of the local garden club get engaged in a scandalous murder.
So, Mitu, I will say, from the start, we have some really interesting and complicated leads.
I love our core 4. We have the vice president of the Garden Society, Catherine, played by Asia Naomi King. She is obsessed with being in control because it appears she's a bit out of control in her personal life. We have socialite Birdie, played by Melissa Fumero, who I hadn't seen in a dramatic role. I've only seen her in comedies, and I really like this on her. And just to go on a light tangent, she has directed some of my favorite episodes of sitcoms in recent years, and I feel like some of that director skill is coming into how she's playing this role. And then we have teacher and aspiring writer Alice, played by Anna Sophia Robb. She's kind of like, I think, our perspective into this group. She's even the narrator in this first episode. I love the story device they used where she compared each person to a flower to introduce the character. I thought that let us know that she's going to be our view into everything. And then we have Brett, who's a dad of 2. He's been cheated on. He's in a tough place, played by Ben Rappaport. And he might have a little bit of a crush on Alice.
I was picking up on those vibes.
Yeah. Okay, so we were both picking up what they were putting down.
Although Alice is currently in a relationship.
With a very hot man.
Adds a wrinkle to the situation.
Big wrinkle. Who's turning their back on him?
And I like that they set things up. In the beginning, we see these core 4 digging and dropping a body in the ground. Then we do 6-month rewind. And throughout this episode, we still don't know whose body they were burying. And we get so many different suspicious people in everyone's lives.
And I saw a few reviews where people felt frustrated by that. Like they wanted to know who the body was in the ground. But I liked that in this first episode, we don't know. And we meet a lot of potential candidates where they are so frustrating to the point where there were moments where I was like, and I hope it's them. And I hope it's them that this group is burying, including at one point, I'm sorry to say, a high schooler where I was like, I can't excuse it, but I can understand it. And I thought it only helped to build intrigue. I am a daughter of devious maids. I fell in love with that show when we reviewed it. Shout out to the listener who recommended it. And this felt like that. It felt like Desperate Housewives, where we're not supposed to have all the answers. And it's their job to bring enough juice that we don't necessarily care. And it's just an overall mystery to follow.
Mm-hmm. And I think because of Asia Naomi King, I got the How to Get Away with Murder vibes.
Yeah.
Because they're all in this together. We get a few more scenes throughout the episode of them hiding the body. And it really made me think of students who are not prepared for post-murder activities.
Yes.
And I'm curious to see how a group of gardeners will handle this.
I think what they do have on their side is, at least for Catherine, Alice, and Brett, they seem to trust each other just implicitly. They have a very open relationship where they are just explicitly telling each other what's going on, to the point where Catherine really confesses some stuff to them in this first episode.
Opens right up.
And there is not a moment of judgment about it.
They are real friends. They have history together with the club. So it is Birdie who's kind of the wild card coming into this. And we learn she's kind of doing it to make up for some stuff and not for the passion of gardening.
No, she is maybe being made to garden.
Someone suggested she do this. Strongly suggested.
With some hours attached to it. A commitment, if you will.
Community service. That is good. Helping, giving back.
Speaking of Birdie and this town, I like that everyone feels suspicious. Not only of who is in the bag, but also, I don't even know if this group of people are the people that killed the person in the bag, or they came across it, and now it is like their problem because they might be implicated in this. I liked that it felt so up in the air, and that it, to me, as we met people in the town, I also felt like some of these people could be the killer. If there is a killer. I assume there's a killer.
I assumed one of the four were the killer, but you're right. We don't know that.
Because it could be like we're stuck with this thing. I guess maybe How to Get Away with Murder style, a light spoiler several years later, where it's like we didn't necessarily do it, but we're around it and we know we're going to get in trouble for it.
Another not so light spoiler. One of the seasons, we knew that they did it.
Yeah, that's true. Annalise Keating did community service for that group of kids.
Yeah, you can only get away with murder so many times. This is what we learned from that show.
That's true. Do you want to see Asia Naomi King and co. get away with murder, possibly some more, on Grosse Pointe Garden Society on NBC?
I do. I will watch again seriously. I'm invested in this murder mystery. There's so many different storylines, but it's not overwhelming or complicated, and I want to see what else is revealed. How do you feel?
I agree. I will watch again while cooking, where I want to keep up this story. So I'm not saying while cooking like this is a background show, but rather I look forward to like Sunday night meal prep, making my little food for the week, and tuning into the mess of the Grosse Pointe Garden Society.
That tracks for you.
Truly, I love a good messy show while I'm cooking, so this will just fit that perfectly. And if you are someone who likes just an over-the-top drama, like a Desperate Housewives, like a Devious Maids, like a How to Get Away with Murder, I think you'll like this one too. All right, Beej, why don't you take us from the garden to the courts?
You're talking about Running Point on Netflix. Isla Gordon, played by Kate Hudson, overlooked her whole life, is now appointed president of the LA Waves basketball team, a family business, and she aims to prove she was the right choice despite skepticism.
How did you feel about this one? I'm curious about your thoughts because I know you don't typically like comedies or smiles or laughter, joy.
Here we go again, coming in hot.
Smiling, opening gifts on Christmas, things like that.
There weren't even children in this pilot. Okay.
Just sort of examples.
You know, I was excited that this was a Mindy Kaling comedy. And while it was funny at times, it was not as funny as I hoped.
I think part of that not as funny was that it seemed like they went for accuracy a lot. I saw that the owner of the Lakers is one of the executive producers, Jeannie Buss, and then Linda Rambis, a documentarian and the wife of a longtime executive coach, even player at the Lakers, is one of the executive producers. It felt like we saw a lot of scenes of Isla proving her basketball IQ and doing deals and things, and I wish we had gone for a few more jokes per minute. However, there were jokes that made me laugh so hard. There was a scene where one of the basketball players, Marcus, does not like mess, and he is asked a messy question, and he quietly turns around and points to a picture of Mary J. Blige. And then the other person was like, is that Mary J. Blige? And then another player was like, he means no more drama. I yelled at that. I thought that was so funny. There is a point where someone said that Isla was too old to be a Nepo baby, so they called her a Nepo crone. That made me laugh very hard. So I thought that there were big jokes that were very funny. You can't not have a lot of humor with someone as funny as Kate Hudson, as funny as this cast, Mindy Kaling, Ike Barinholtz involved. But I wish we had a few more jokes per minute.
Yeah, I think that them trying to go for accuracy to managing a basketball team and the family business aspect held back the comedy. I think there's a lot of potential with this premise for a drama. I really liked seeing Isla on this journey to proving herself. Love seeing Brenda Song as her best friend. And I think Isla and her brother Cam, her oldest brother, played by Justin Theroux, were the standout characters.
Loved Cam, loved him taking a chance on Isla and finally kind of listening to her, really out of some pretty intense necessity that you'll see in the first few minutes. Also, him in the hospital, maybe there were more jokes that I'm giving this show credit for. The whole scene of him in the hospital handing the reins over to Isla cracked me up from minute one to close, despite it being a very otherwise sad scene. But I think Mindy Kaling especially is really good at balancing like bigger emotional stakes with humor. There's even a point where Isla is trying to give a speech like, all my life I've been overlooked being the woman in this family. I think dad never wanted a girl. Like while she's speaking, Cam is like, I'm going to stop you right there because I don't care. And it just made me laugh a lot. And I liked the dynamics of the family of Allie, Brenda Song's character, as you said, her as chief of staff. I liked how they brought in some of the players. So I think it'll also be an interesting thing to watch these relationships develop and change.
Yes, we're going to see a lot of growth, a lot of evolution in this family business. I will add there was one joke that did not hit for me and kind of soured me from the start, or at least made me worried. Isla makes a comment about thinking her brother is hot, and I thought that was weird.
That was weird. But I also think some families just talk like that.
Yeah.
I do. I think some families talk like that. Not my family and not your family, but there are families that do that.
Could have said handsome.
Yeah.
Or just good looking.
And she acknowledges it's an odd thing to say.
She does. Within the show, they recognize that this is an uncommon comment for siblings to make about each other.
And setting aside the one sibling calling another sibling hot of it all, I thought the pilot was really well balanced. Where we sacrificed a bit of the jokes per minute, they did such a good job. They introduced sparks, possible love interest. They introduced a ton of family dynamics with her brothers.
A twist at the end.
A good twist. I really liked that. And I knew they were focusing on that character for a reason. I knew he was going to be important. I just didn't quite know he would be that important.
Don't read Wikipedia first, or you will know what the twist is.
Uh-oh. Okay, y'all, you heard it here first. Do not go on Wikipedia before you watch this. But it was very well done, and I was intrigued to see more.
Will you watch more episodes of Running Point on Netflix?
I will definitely watch again casually. It is a solid comedy, and I think it'll only get better.
I feel exactly the same way.
All right. I love when we agree.
And on a comedy, too. So how about we go from basketball players to police community support officers?
You're talking about Black Ops on Hulu. Dom, played by Bemisola Ikumelo, and Kay, played by Hamed Animashon, join the Met Police in the hope of cleaning up their community, but find themselves unwittingly thrust into the world of deep cover infiltration as they become part of a powerful criminal enterprise.
So, Mitu, I don't want to call you out, but...
Okay, wow.
This is your type of comedy.
I actually don't even necessarily like cop humor. I love me a procedural. I don't typically like police comedies, but this one, I laughed from minute one to close.
We have funny, charming leads that took us on an adventure.
When Dom and Kay have to sell drugs, and Kay goes, "How you doing, lads? Just doing a spot of drug dealing." I laughed so hard. Because I was like, I think if BJ and I were forced to sell drugs, I would try to make change, do customer service, check in. And it made me laugh so hard. And then the way that they got stuck into that world made me laugh so hard. Dom gives this speech about like, I'm just stuck in this awful role because I'm not being promoted due to racism. So I just ride this out for the next 30 years to retirement. It sounds very sad, but the way that she gives that speech made me laugh. There's a scene where they are essentially abducted by this gang before they're being brought in to be these deep cover people. And they each bring weapons. And Dom brings this giant knife, but Kay brought like a lighter and spray. And it just made me laugh so hard. Like their two approaches It was very funny.
The whole time, I think we were both laughing. And I do really like the premise. They are not cops. They're
No.
trying to improve the reputation with cops. But then, due to attributes that they have, they were recruited for another job. And it's just fun to see them lean into it because the more drugs they sell, the more confident they get at selling drugs.
I did think for a moment, like, maybe you're meant to just do this.
But, and we're not going to spoil this, they aren't as good as they think. They have help.
Yes. And I buy the stakes of the show. As funny and as silly as this was, Kay earnestly cares about the community. He earnestly believes that this type of police work he's been doing prior to the deep cover of passing out balloons and frisbees and simply being a black face in the neighborhood in a uniform and the surveys, he believes that these are things that are helping the community. He signed up to do this because he is eager to help the community. And I liked the stakes of Dom agreeing to do this really high-risk thing because at her core, she is a very good investigator. It's just that racism has blocked her from being able to advance. And I would also say it is not necessarily hard to make racism funny, but there were so many scenes that were, and this is an overused word, but like a bit triggering. Like they definitely make you think of situations you've had in office spaces or in spaces that are not necessarily welcoming for who you are. And they still found the humor in so many of those. And so that also, I also appreciated that a lot. But the stakes of this were really fantastic.
That made me think of a scene that I laughed very hard at, where Dom is coming into work and they ask where her badge is, and she just points to a picture of her in an advertisement for the office on the wall.
It reminded me of the time that I did at a corporate job many, many years ago, community service, where after work they took us all to this shelter to give out food. And I was in a full suit. This is a corporate job. And the person who worked at the shelter said, the hours are not 5 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock, let's say. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I was in a meeting running late, but I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be here at 5. And it took us a few minutes of exchange for me to understand that she believed I was there for the services of the shelter and absolutely could not fathom in her mind that I could be with the other people in the room about to give out the food.
That's life at its worst.
But when I told you about that pretty immediately after this lady did that to me, I was laughing and you laughed. And
we
that's
laughed a
what
lot.
this show mined. Yeah, I still laugh about it.
And I think you have to have a good cast and good writers to make it funny.
Yeah.
And speaking of the writers, there's a very good hook at the end of this episode.
It made me watch more episodes of it. My hand was forced.
You think, is it just going to be them being goofy, lovable drug dealers? And the answer is there's more.
Absolutely. Do you want to watch more of Black Ops on Hulu?
I think due to the length of this show and all the laughter, this would make a great lunchtime show.
Yeah.
So I would watch again while eating lunch. How about for you?
I would watch again, seriously. I'm already on episode 4. Finished that. It was so good. Quick episodes. You and I were recording later than usual.
At least you're honest.
I had a couple extra hours to myself, and I filled that time watching more of this show.
Used it wisely.
Like, for Black British Comedy Hive, to name another big one, it is like chewing gum, but with 90% less of the cringe. So you're not quite like full body uncomfortable, but it is just constant awkward hijinks, but very funny. I also am now realizing, is the name of the show a pun? Is it Black Cops? Black Ops? Oh my gosh. Okay. Sounds good. Really smart people. That's why I do TV reviews. Like, that's art criticism, high art, fine arts. I am applying for Mensa.
Well, with that, how about we learn about some more, educated, affluent, influential Black people?
You're talking about Beyond the Gates on CBS. Set in an affluent Maryland suburb just outside of Washington, D.C., this soap opera centers around the Dupree family, a multi-generational wealthy African-American family in a gated community.
Ooh. Would you want to live in Fairmount Crest Country Club? Or just Fairmount Crest neighborhood?
No, I never want to live anywhere where I need a car.
True. You could have a driver.
That's true. I guess if I live there, I'm wealthy, so I'm not thinking about like car maintenance and repair and parking zones and permits. That's true. I'm not thinking big enough.
Mm-hmm. And you'd have a golf cart.
Oh, that's true. Then yes, I would live in those conditions.
You have all of the luxuries.
Yes.
Okay.
A mansion and a chauffeur and a golf cart for when I want to just go around a little bit, see my friends. I'll do that.
Speaking of your friends, what did you think of the Dupree family? Would you want to hang out with them?
Absolutely, I'd want to hang out with some of them, and I'd otherwise want to sit at the table next to Anita, the matriarch, played by Tamara Tooney, Law and Order SVU legend, and her daughter Nicole, played by Daphne Duplay. I absolutely want to be at the table next door to them because what they did so beautifully in this show is they had Anita and Nicole handle most of the storytelling, where it's them at brunch
monologuing.
Like, you'll never believe why this person is late because of this, and this. And it's just that for like 10 minutes. And you would think that would get old, but it simply doesn't. It is juicy the whole time because the other part of the show that I love is how over the top everything is. So it keeps you interested because the energy, there's such high highs and such low lows that you just are on this roller coaster and it's fun. And it's also only like 35 minutes or something.
Yes, we're on a roller coaster, especially with Danny, played by Carla Mosley, the other daughter of Anita. And as a soap opera, it's dramatic. It's over the top. As you said, a lot was packed into 10 minutes. That 10 minutes was also stretched over the entire episode. Yeah. Time doesn't matter when you're talking about families and disrespect, affairs, new women trying to buy homes in the Faircrest community that was built by the Duprees.
Especially when they stole other women's husbands?
Lack of respect.
But unfortunately, it was very fun to watch that disrespect. We even meet Danny as she is dealing with some of the fallout of the end of her marriage. And our first encounter with her, she is throwing mugs across the room in frustration as she is just trying to make her morning coffee.
Plural.
Like, this is soap opera. This is beautiful.
And you have friends there just to really rile her up. Like, what's bothering you? Is it that wedding invitation that you're looking at?
But isn't that what you would do?
No.
Okay. You wouldn't be messy and you wouldn't be like, is that the wedding invitation of your ex-husband and the friend of your oldest daughter that he fell in love with that y'all took in?
I would not say that to the person. I would say that to you. I'd be like, isn't it wild that her daughter's friend is with her husband now?
A cornerstone of our relationship is reporting gossip to each other. So that actually is very true, that we would make sure we're in the kitchens of these people. Absolutely. But we're not riling them up. We are gathering notes.
Yeah, I will attend the event. I am a friend of the Dupree family. I'm not going to mess up that connection.
I also love that this is the first new daytime soap opera to debut on a major American broadcast network since Passions in 1999.
Yeah.
And it's our first daytime soap opera since 1989's Generations to feature a predominantly Black cast. So we also get our first new show in a while.
There has been a void. We now know, this was a off-podcast conversation, that Me Too hasn't had a soap opera to invest in. And maybe this is the era for all millennials to pick their daytime soap opera.
That's true. I wonder if that is for the millennials, because I think about soap operas and I think about my mom and my aunts having their stories or I didn't grow up with my grandparents, but I know a lot of my friends will say, like, my grandma was a Passions grandma, or my grandma
Young
was
and the Restless.
As the World Turns, Young and the Restless. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're loyal to these things, but those things all felt so past to me. And also, I mean, there's just hundreds of episodes to catch up on.
Yeah.
But in watching this, I genuinely felt like, okay, I have received my stories. It's like one of my friends said that when he turned 30, he was like, I just received a pair of white linen pants and barbecue leather sandals in the mail, because when you are a Black man who turns 30, those are the things that appear at your doorstep. And I felt similarly. I said, okay, this is my linen pants and open-toed grill sandals.
You've reached this point in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like you're accepting.
100%.
But there's one thing I'm struggling to accept.
Okay.
There's an additional character, Ashley, played by Jen Jacob, who feels shoehorned into the story, at least in this pilot.
I was so confused by Ashley's presence that I know you and I talked about this a bit off mic. I genuinely thought I had accidentally briefly turned to the wrong show, because I was like, and who is this? And then when we eventually understand why she is there, it felt like they could have introduced her in just a few minutes rather than really a few seconds, especially when you think about the efficiency of soap opera storytelling versus how long they took to get to the point with her. I thought that was odd, especially in such a packed show of like fun revelation after fun revelation.
Yes, we have action-packed scenes with the matriarch, the daughters, the granddaughters, the grandson, and then cut in are scenes of just Ashley living her life. And just like you, I thought, CBS messed up and they spliced in another show.
Because the other thing we haven't said is Ashley is white. So I truly was confused, and her fiance is white. So I was like, where did these white people come from? Because I had only seen the Dupree family, and then the real estate agent friend was the only white person I was accustomed to. And she was only in scenes with other Black people. So I said, who is Ashley? Where is she coming from?
And Ashley's a nurse. So I also was like, this is definitely a different show.
Yeah.
Now it's a medical drama. Like, what's going on?
And there was no mention of Dupree, nothing. Because I thought, okay, is this who Bill is cheating with? Like, what's going on? None of that. I really tried to explain it. And then you finally understand why she's there, truly in the last scene of her being on there. And it's like, okay, we could have gotten there in a matter of seconds instead of having multiple scenes watching her get dressed for work.
Exactly. But they balanced it out with some really great scenes of everyone else. By the end, a lot of the Dupree family comes together. And Me Too got that dramatic scene I know she wanted.
A slap. I was so happy. Got a good soap opera slap.
And no one tried to stop it. No one in that room.
No. She telegraphed that move from a mile away, hand winding up 6 miles behind her. Anybody at any point could have just gotten up, not even rushed over, perhaps hastened to grab her arm and stop her. But instead, they all sat there and then were stunned by the time the slap came around the room. It was so good, so dramatic. I yelled with joy.
Even the victim of the slap, I don't want to spoil it, stood there holding their cheek like, did that really just happen?
And, we can't get into it without spoilers, so I won't get into it too much. But the victim of the slap, I feel like we got to hear her out. I'm not anti-her right now.
You're open to the victim of the slap having...
Yeah, I am.
Wow.
And we could talk about this off mic. But I think my sister has more to the story.
Wow.
And I think we need to hear it.
Just because cheaters cheat doesn't mean we have to accept it.
But she wasn't married to anybody.
She wasn't, but she's someone's friend.
Yeah.
They let her in.
Yeah.
Okay, we will have to talk about that afterwards. In the meantime, let's just go through our official rating because I think it became very obvious. What would you rate Beyond the Gates on CBS?
I will watch again seriously. Not only will I watch again seriously, I look forward to a daily watch of this. I look forward to just like every day when I sit down for lunch, I'm going to have my stories now. And if you are, especially a millennial of a certain age, you haven't been chosen by your stories yet, I think try this one and let's see if it's a match.
And you get to start from the beginning. No catch up.
Yes, that's what's exciting.
I don't think I have the time to dedicate to it like you do.
Okay,
but
drag me.
I will try to watch maybe while cooking in the evenings after work, or I might get recaps from you. But I want to know what happens.
No matter what, it is so juicy. If you're a juicy show person, at the very least, read the recaps. You'll want to keep up with this.
And you wanted to know my favorite flower?
Yes.
I can picture it, but I don't remember what it's called. It's orange.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're native to Mexico.
Oh,
They are annuals.
okay.
Sorry, listeners. I'll follow up when I remember the name.
Email us at askthepilotpodcast@gmail.com if you are familiar with orange flowers that are annuals in Mexico.
We would love to know the name. Thank you.
And when you see BJ in the street, that's what you give him.
You don't have to talk to me in the streets.
Why don't you tell them where they can at least hear you in more episodes of the Pilot Podcast?
You can always hear us at thepilotpodcast.com and on your favorite podcast platforms.
You can send thoughts, feelings, show recommendations, because every other week we do a show recommended by you, our wonderful listeners, to askthepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Marigold. Bye.
A Playlyst original.